drop them out there, and they're quickly going to realize that, wow, you can't see 15 feet into the woods because they're so thick. There could be anything out there.
Yeah, and I would be, I'd be so terrified just being in a situation like that.
Yeah, it's eye-opening, and part of the fun I have in this kind of research, whether I see a creature or not, it's always interesting and a bit dangerous and exciting to go to the areas where people claim they had seen whatever they had reported, and to just sort of evaluate that landscape and decide whether something could be in there. And so it puts you in exotic locations, from swamps to the Appalachian foothills and, forestry that, you may never would have gone to. And so that's part of the fun of this whole thing, is just the research and of the geography and the terrain of these areas. And the more you do, the more you realize that, sure, we've developed a lot of it, but there's still uncharted and untapped places out there.
Oh, a lot. Now, can you explain to the listeners what a lizard man is and what it looks like?
Lizard man is another alleged group of cryptids that are described as humanoid in form. They're upright, walk on two legs, but their skin is scaly, brownish or greenish. They have, serpent-like eyes. Some of the witnesses have said thought they saw a tail, but in most of the lizard man cases, it was just simply sort of an upright, scaly humanoid type thing. And those sightings are rather rare, as you would imagine. And I wrote a book called Lizard Man, The True Story of the Bishopville Monster. There was a famous case from back in the 1980s out in Bishopville, South Carolina, in this swampy area called Scapor Swamp, which numerous people had reported seeing what the locals referred to as the Lizard Man. And this was something that the police were involved in searches, and numerous credible people saw it. In one case, a kid was chased by this creature. And so it was almost sort of like this, like a modern creature from a Black Lagoon, like a living creature from a Black Lagoon. And I went out there and did some research and got a lot of the newspaper files and talked to this retired sheriff who had been involved in the whole case. And it was interesting and sobering to think that there could even be something like this out there in those swamps, because the concept of this lizard man is kind of like dog man. It's just so strange and monstrous that it's frightening to think that something like that could be out there.
Well, what other cryptids that you know of that is as scary as the lizard man? Any of them been known to like attack wildlife or livestock or even humans, or anything that you're aware of?
Well, certainly there's livestock that's, fallen victim to some unknown creature. In the case of chupacabra, which there's sort of two varieties of that. There's sort of the four-legged, canid sort of thing that people associate with Texas, where I'm from, and then there's the original kind of version from Puerto Rico from the 1990s, which was this bipedal, more of a scaly, spiked type creature that was allegedly killing livestock by sucking the blood out. That's where the name came from. Chupacabras means goat sucker in Spanish, and it was drinking the blood of goats and other livestock. So there's always kind of this thing, if there's, these unexplained livestock deaths, that people will suggest that perhaps it was a cryptid, whether it's a chupacabra. As far as some of the others, Lizard Man, in kind of like I said, in one of the most famous cases, it allegedly chased this kid, and so it seemed to be aggressive. Let's see. Even the Thunderbirds, or the large birds, it was a case from the 1970s in Illinois in which a young boy was playing out front, and a huge bird swooped down and picked up the kid and started carrying him off into the air. And his mother ran out and screamed, and I guess it startled the bird, and he dropped the kid. But right there was a case of, and there's no doubt that happened, because there was numerous people standing out there and watched this happen. And they said this bird was huge. It was, kind of a Thunderbird or something of that description. But so you do have these interactions with humans in which, they're aggressive, which I love those stories.
I do too. When you think about, Thunderbird grabbing that kid, I just remember last year I was driving, and we live near the peninsula where it's salt water and all that, near Bangor, Bremerton Naval, base there. I remember driving, and this huge eagle, kind of like a cat, ran in front of my car, and I slowed down so I wouldn't hit it. But as I slowed down, this huge eagle just swooped down, grabbed the cat, and the cat and the eagle were both gone. So you can imagine the size of a full-grown cat being picked up by an eagle. Something with a huge wingspan could easily pick up a small person.
Yeah, no doubt. There were cases in Africa recently where they found the bones of human children in these nest areas, and or in bones of chimpanzees and things. So these birds had picked up, humanoid or humans, and carried them off. So it's really quite frightening to think that could happen if you were just standing in your yard, doing some yard work one day, and a bird flies down. And I can't imagine what that mother felt when she ran out. I can imagine my daughter being carried off by a bird. It would just be a nightmare.
Well, how about the child who was picked up? Emotional damage to that. If I was a kid and all of a sudden a giant bird, depending on my age, picked me up, you couldn't get me outside of my bedroom after that.
Yeah, no doubt. I can imagine it. You wouldn't want to go outside. You'd just be kind of looking up into the air over your shoulder, especially if you're in the same front yard. It's not like the family can move. They're stuck there, and that's where it happened. And the birds weren't caught. There was 2 of them, and they flew off, and, they were just gone. Nobody could, they were sighted again, a few days later by some people, and that was it. So, they're still out there, and that kid, would be completely traumatized.
Well, it's better than being dinner to some bird, I'll tell you that. It's supposed to be the other way around,
yeah.
You know that.
True, yeah.
Yeah. What other cryptids can you, because we only got a few minutes left with you, what other cryptids should we be looking for if we are into, looking for cryptids? Well,
another category that we haven't mentioned would be, lake monsters. There's so many lakes, especially in the northern half of North America, that have histories of sightings of unknown creatures. Everybody's familiar with Loch Ness Monster, of course, in Scotland, but in Lake Champlain, which is New York, Vermont area, there is an equally long history of sightings of a creature called Champ, and it's kind of the same description of a long-necked sort of a, dinosaur, plesiosaur type creature that allegedly lives in the body of Lake Champlain. So those are kind of things, and you can literally look into your own, if there's big lakes near your home, you can look these up, and, it's interesting to know, even if you're just hanging out at the lake. And so many lakes, Lake Tahoe and Okanagan and there's just countless legends like this out there about these unexplained creatures in lakes. Down here in our area, we don't have a lot of natural lakes and not a lot of big lakes. So there are a few scant creatures, the White River Monster from Arkansas, which is in the White River, the Tensaw River creature in Louisiana. So we do have a few down here, but if you're in the north, you've got a lot more lakes with those kind of creatures.
Well, even, was it Crater Lake, Oregon? There's rumors that there's supposed to be some type of creature that lives in that lake. Now, that is a very deep lake because it was, the lake was from a volcano. It filled in with water originally.
Right, yeah. Crater Lake, ironically, has, reports of a supposed real creature that lives there. And there was a movie made back in the 70s called The Crater Lake Monster, which is kind of a cheesy horror movie, but it's cool because it's using that exact location of Crater Lake for the setting. And so, yeah, that's just another one of these lakes that has legends of a creature.
Oh, yeah. So how often do you get reports on your website from people, claiming that they've seen some type of cryptid?
I usually get something almost every day. They can come in through my website, email, or Facebook, just multiple ways people contact me. Or if I'm out doing events, I do quite a few events around the country, Bigfoot conferences and Mothman festivals and what have you. And a lot of people will come up and say, hey, I've read your book. I like your research. And hey, by the way, I saw this. So I get a lot of them that way. But yeah, usually it's coming in daily. And if I'm researching a certain subject for a book, I'm actively kind of seeking reports in some area or reports of some certain creature. And then, things come in quite a bit.
So your honest feeling, does Mothman exist, or is that just something that's just folk lore that, people just keep, spreading it on and on? Well,
the Mothman's a hard one because you're not talking about something that's as easily explainable in terms of a natural animal. With something of a winged humanoid, it's it edges on more of a paranormal explanation, possibly. But ultimately, the original sightings in Point Pleasant, West Virginia, back in 1966 and into 1967, I have no doubt that those witnesses saw something unexplainable, some large flying entity of some sort. This wasn't something they made up. There was too many witnesses and multiple credible witnesses that had seen something similar. As to what they saw, that's the hard part, because there have been explanations, offered up over the years, giant storks and paratroopers from the military and all this kind of stuff, but I'm quite certain they would know the difference between a paratrooper and just some abnormally large, white bird versus a humanoid-like creature with wings. So I just literally can't explain it other than it's sort of an unsolved mystery, and one in which, I find extremely intriguing, and I can continue to explore those kind of sightings and, kind of readdress them and look into them and take new sighting reports if people have reported something like that. So very cool stuff.
Well, sir, why don't you give again where they can buy your books, where they can get autographed ones and all that. And if they've seen a cryptid, again, give all that information where they can share that with you.
Okay, yeah, the best way to find out more information about me is to get on my website, and that's Lyle Blackburn, Lyle, Blackburn.com. And I have a Facebook page and Instagram page and all that, so you can contact me in multiple ways. But yeah, just hit my website. It's got information about my books, the movies I've been involved in, all of my appearances where I'll be around the country. I'm all over the place, so I may be doing one near you, and those are fun events. So just hit lyleblackburn.com. There's links